The smell of cut grass, it always hits me. Not my backyard, not anymore. It's the cracked blacktop of the elementary school, the ghost of chalk dust in the air. I see Megan Walker's faded denim jacket, frayed edges, missing buttons, a story on its own. She wore that thing like armor. Mrs. Davison's fifth-grade classroom in our small Pennsylvania town, nothing special. Multiplication charts and cursive alphabet posters curled at the edges from years of swampy air. But that's where I got it. What it meant to care, you know? Like really get someone else's pain. Megan? She sat 3 rows up, always hunched, trying to disappear. Her dark hair, usually in a rubber band, not the bright, stupid scrunchies other girls wore, caught the morning sun streaming in through the scratched window. She'd wear the same clothes days in a row. The kids noticed, of course. They always do, but they pretended not to see. Cruelty in its quietest form. My mom, she'd just pack extra food. No questions asked. An extra sandwich, wrapped tight in wax paper, or an apple that somehow shined brighter than the rest. First time I pushed half my lunch to Megan at recess, her eyes widened, a mix of hungry and hesitant. She didn't say thanks. She didn't need to. The way her fingers trembled as she took the sandwich, it said everything. We had this routine. Every day, same spot under the big oak on the playground. The branches gave us shade and hid us from everyone else. Sometimes we'd talk about homework, the latest cartoon, or how the cafeteria's mystery meat looked more mysterious than usual. Other times, just silence. It was comfortable, honest, more real than a conversation. The stuffed cat keychain? A little thing, really. Won it in one of those stupid claw machines at the grocery store. One eye bigger than the other. Fur a mess. But when I gave it to Megan, she acted like I'd given her the Hope Diamond. Her fingers closed around it like it was precious. Sacred, even. That was the first genuine smile I ever saw from her. A break in the wall. Looking back, I wonder, did I get it back then? Did I know those lunches and talks were keeping Megan from getting swept away? Her family's struggles were obvious. The way she'd hoard every piece of paper, her tiny handwriting stretching it out. How she'd go weeks without supplies until payday. My mom saw it too. Started sending me with extra pencils, erasers, clean notebooks. Share with anyone who needs them, she'd say. Never said Megan's name, but we knew. Mom's way, helping without the show. Teaching me kindness doesn't need an audience. Then, that gray Tuesday in March, Megan's seat was empty. Whispers started before first period ended. Her dad got transferred. California. Just like that, she was gone. No goodbyes, no forwarding address. Just her empty desk, echoing her absence. Later, I heard they'd left in the middle of the night. Unpaid bills, mounting pressure. All I knew then, my friend vanished. Took that beat-up cat and our quiet friendship with her. Years pass. Sometimes I catch a cartoon theme song on the radio, and I think about her. Did California treat her better? Is she still hunched against the world, or did she learn to stand tall? Does she even remember our shared lunches, or did those memories fade like her jean jacket? I wouldn't know for a long time. Fluorescent lights in Global Tech's Chicago office. They're harsh today, casting shadows on my monitor, where John's latest email burns. Team, the Stardust Industries situation needs immediate attention. James needs to explain these oversights under his watch. My stomach tightens. Under my watch? I want to laugh, but it catches in my throat. For 3 months, John's been micromanaging this deal, breathing down my neck, second-guessing every move. Now it's falling apart, and suddenly it's my responsibility? Classic John. Stardust was supposed to be my win. My shot at the big leagues. 7 figures of IT infrastructure upgrades. The kind of contract that builds careers. I spent nights on prep, crunching numbers, making sure everything was perfect. But John, with his 20 years experience and iron fist on control, had to have final say. My fingers drum on the desk, remembering our last meeting with Stardust. I noticed the issues in the service agreements, tried to point it out to John during our prep. He waved me off, that condescending smile of his. James, this is how we do it. Trust the process. The process. Right. Now, Stardust's lawyers are tearing apart every detail. The warranty periods don't match their needs. The timeline clashes with their fiscal year end. Basic stuff that any rookie would catch, if they were allowed to do their damn job. The worst part? Everyone's walking on eggshells, glancing at me when they think I'm not looking. They've seen this before. John deflects the blame when things go south. Nobody speaks up. Why would they? He's been here forever, playing office politics while the rest of us scramble. I pull up my original contract draft, the one I did before John's improvements. Everything was there, clear, aligned with Stardust's needs. I could forward it to upper management, show how John screwed it up. But what would that do? Corporate America cares less about the truth and more about the narrative, and John controls that. My phone buzzes. Another email. Urgent meeting with Inotech in San Francisco. A smaller deal, but maybe my lifeline. If I lose both Stardust and Inotech, I might as well update my LinkedIn profile. The thought makes me shiver. 5 years at Global Tech, climbing rung by rung, and it all could crash because of someone else's screw up. I run my hands through my hair, catching my reflection in the window. When did I start looking so tired? So beaten? This isn't what I imagined. I wanted to build something, achieve something real. Now, I'm stuck in this corporate game, dancing to someone else's tune. San Francisco could be a reset. A chance to prove my worth, away from John's grip. But booking that flight, I can't shake the feeling that I'm running instead of facing the music. Maybe that's always been my go-to. Head down, avoid confrontation, let others take the lead. Just like with Megan, all those years ago, when I let her disappear without fighting to stay in touch, I close my eyes, breathe, and start writing my response to John. Professional, detailed, and just submissive enough to avoid rocking the boat. Sometimes survival means swallowing your pride. That's what I tell myself anyway. The Inotech lobby is all glass and chrome, California sun pouring through floor-to-ceiling windows. Exactly what you'd expect. Sleek, modern, success dripping from every polished surface. I'm adjusting my tie, running through my pitch when my world tilts. James? James Mitchell? That voice. Different now, stronger, confident, but the cadence. It shot through 15 years of memories. I turn. It's her, Megan Walker. Transformed. 15 years since that gray Tuesday, the whispers of her family leaving. But now? Not the girl I remember. Not worn clothes, hesitant smile. This Megan stands tall in a charcoal blazer that probably costs more than my rent. Her dark hair falls in waves around her shoulders. Quiet authority in her stance. My carefully planned pitch feels inadequate. She's wearing success like it's natural. For a moment, I'm that awkward kid offering half a sandwich, trying not to make it obvious. Megan? My voice is hoarse, surprised. Wow. This is unexpected? She laughs. A rich, confident sound that's nothing like the giggles we shared under that oak tree. I saw your name on the schedule and thought I must be seeing things. We're standing in the lobby, a still island in the rush of tech workers. She's wearing a diamond that catches the sun, throwing tiny rainbows against the white walls. The kind of ring you'd expect. Elegant, expensive, a statement. You look. I'm searching for words that won't sound trite. How do you tell someone they've gone from a shadow to a supernova? Different? She fills the gap, a knowing smile. Life's been kind. But look at you, global tech's rising star, or so I hear. The irony, given the stardust mess, makes me want to laugh or cry. I force a professional smile, trying to match her cool. You've been tracking me? LinkedIn is a wonderful thing, she says with a shrug. Plus, your company's been making waves. Speaking of which, she checks her watch. Precise, purposeful. We should head up. Brian's waiting. Brian? I ask, following her towards the elevators. My fiancé, she says. Something in her voice I can't read. He's also our VP of operations. He likes to sit in on these things. The elevator glides up, and I watch our reflections in the polished doors. Two adults, keeping a careful distance, following rules that would have baffled our fifth-grade selves. The silence is heavy with unspoken questions. The presentation room is another study in startup chic. Whiteboard walls, ergonomic chairs, a view of the bay that's probably in their brochures. Brian is exactly as expected, tall, groomed, that casual confidence of someone who never worried about money. He kisses Megan possessively, then turns to me, handshake firm. So you're the global tech guy, he says, something calculating in his gaze. Megan mentioned you two go way back. I see a flicker of tension in her fingers tightening almost imperceptibly around her tablet. Fifth grade, I say, keeping it light. Ancient history. The presentation goes better than I expected. Maybe it's the shock of seeing Megan. Or maybe it's the desperation to prove myself. To her, to Brian, to myself. I walk through Global Tech's proposal. Confidence I didn't know I possessed. Megan asks sharp, technical questions. She's done her homework, and more than that, it shows how far she's come. But it's in the in-between. The moments between slides, I see glimpses of the Megan I knew. The way she tucks her hair when she's thinking hard. Her eyes still crinkle when she's trying not to smile at something amusing. These familiar gestures are like secret messages from our past. As the meeting ends, Brian gets pulled away by an emergency call. Megan lingers, organizing papers. You did well, she says, not looking up. Your technical integration approach, it's exactly what we need. High praise from Inotech's star engineer, I respond, and her eyes meet mine. Pride mixed with something else. Something that makes me think of oak trees and shared lunches. Coffee? She asks, suddenly. Catch up. There's a place downstairs with decent espresso. I should say no. I have emails, calls, a career crisis back in Chicago. But looking at Megan, this new, confident Megan, who somehow still echoes the girl I once knew, there's only one answer. Lead the way, I say, and follow her out of the room that suddenly feels too small. The cafe's afternoon crowd hums around us, a buffer that makes our corner feel like a separate universe. Megan cups her cappuccino, that huge diamond catching the light. It looks heavy on her finger, like it's weighing her down. So, I start, stirring my Americano. California worked out pretty well for you. She laughs, but it doesn't reach her eyes. That's one way to say it. Dad's transfer ended up a good thing. Silicon Valley was taking off, and his IT skills were in demand. We went from barely making rent to actually having savings in a year. I watch her carefully arrange a sugar packet next to her spoon. Everything lined up. A new habit, this need for order. The Megan I knew doodled swirls in her notebook, embraced chaos in small ways. And you? Engineering at Stanford, I'm guessing? Berkeley, actually. She smiles, but there's that shadow. Full ride. I practically lived in the lab my first 2 years. I was afraid if I slowed down, it would all disappear. You know how it is when you've grown up with nothing. You never quite believe the good things will last. The words hit me. I think about the little girl rationing her notebook paper, and I see the successful woman in front of me, still carrying that fear. I do know, I say, lying softly, because how could I really? I had packed lunches and new supplies every September. But look at you, senior engineer, engaged to the VP. Something flickers at Brian's mention. She sips her coffee before answering. Life's funny, isn't it? Sometimes I look around and wonder if I'm living someone else's story. Like any minute, the real Megan Walker will show up and take her life back. And would that be so terrible? I ask, watching her trace the rim of her cup. Trading places with the real Megan Walker? Her eyes meet mine, and I see past the polished surface to something raw, uncertain. The actual Megan Walker hid under an oak tree at recess, she says in hushed tones. She wouldn't recognize me now. I do, I say, surprised by the certainty in my voice. You're still you, Megan, just more. She blinks, looks down at her hands. Brian's good to me, she says, like defending herself. He's stable, successful. His family has connections that open doors I never knew existed. The wedding's set for spring, at his family's place in Napa. Sounds perfect, I say, trying to sound neutral. Perfect, she echoes, that shadow darker now. That's what everyone says. Perfect match, perfect timing, perfect life. Sometimes, I wonder if that's all I am now, a perfect collection of choices. A barista drops something behind the counter. The crash makes us both jump. In that moment, I see the old Megan who'd flinch at loud noises, always expecting bad news. Do you ever think about back then? She asks suddenly. About Pennsylvania? More than I should, I admit. I tried to find you, you know. After you left, nobody seemed to know where you'd gone. She nods, wrapping her arms around herself despite the cafe's warmth. Dad was running from debt collectors. We couldn't leave a trail. I wanted to write, call, but she trails off, lost in memories. By the time things settled, it felt too late. Too much time had passed. And now here we are, I say, gesturing between us. 15 years later, drinking overpriced coffee in San Francisco. Here we are, she agrees. Her voice makes my heart skip. She checks her phone, sighs. I should get back. Brian's probably wondering where I disappeared to. Standing to leave, she hesitates. James, thank you for the lunches back then, for seeing me when no one else did. I want to tell her I still see her, past the clothes and the ring, past the composure. I just nod, watching her walk away, her heels clicking precisely. But before she goes, her shoulders hunch, and I catch a glimpse of the girl who sat 3 rows ahead of me, carrying a weight too heavy for her. Watching Megan across the candlelit table at Mateo's, I marvel at how life twists and turns. Soft light catches the silver pendant at her throat, shadows dancing on her collarbone. She traces the rim of her wineglass, a nervous habit I've noticed over the past few days. Remember Tommy Peterson? She asks, eyes sparkling with mischief. The kid who ate paste in art class? I chuckle, leaning in. The one who tried to convince everyone it was vanilla pudding? How could I forget? Her laugh bubbles up, warm. Different from the polished giggle around Brian, something in my chest tightens at the sound. We've spent every evening together since the Innotech meeting, finding excuses to extend our time, a coffee that becomes hours, a walk stretching into miles along the bay. The waiter appears with our entrees, and I see Megan methodically dividing her risotto into neat sections, like she used to divide her school lunch. Some habits never change. She sees my smile, rolls her eyes. "Don't start," she warns, but her lips curve up. Later, strolling the pier, the wind whips her hair around her face. She lets it go wild, not bothering to tuck it back. The city lights sparkled across the bay, matching her restless energy. She talks about her projects, animated, hands gesturing expressively. But when the conversation drifts to Brian, her shoulders tense, her words become measured, rehearsed. "He treats me well," she says, but her fingers twist the ring on her left hand. "Stable, dependable." The words hang in the air like fog, heavy with what's left unsaid. I stop walking, turn to face her. But is that enough? Her breath catches, and I see that fifth-grade girl again, vulnerable, uncertain. She looks out at the water, wraps her arms around herself. "It should be, shouldn't it?" she whispers. "After everything, shouldn't I just be grateful?" My heart aches. Without thinking, I reach out, touch her shoulder. She doesn't pull away. I feel her trembling, even though it's not that cold. The space between us crackles with unspoken words, possibilities we both fear to acknowledge. A foghorn blasts in the distance, making us both jump. Megan steps back, clears her throat. "We should probably head back," she says, but her eyes linger on mine. "Brian's expecting me for dinner with his parents." I nod, shove my hands in my pockets, resist reaching for her again. We walk back to her car, shoulders brushing, electricity through my veins with each touch. The silence feels both perfect and terrible. Perfect because it's so natural. Terrible because I know it can't last. Each evening blends into the next, our time becoming sweeter, more painful. We find this little Italian cafe in North Beach, where the owner, Maria, slips us extra cannoli with a wink. Megan's face lights up at the first bite, powdered sugar dusting her lips, and I have to fight the urge to brush it away with my thumb. "You know what's funny?" she says one evening, sharing a bench overlooking the Golden Gate. "I kept that stuffed cat keychain you gave me." Her voice wavers slightly. "Through all the moves, all the changes, I couldn't let it go. The admission hangs between us, heavy with meaning." I watch her profile, noting how she refuses to meet my eyes. Her fingers play with the hem of her blazer, another tell I've come to know. "Brian wants a Christmas wedding," she continues, her voice flat. "At the Fairmont. 300 guests, ice sculptures, the works." She lets out a hollow laugh. "His mother's already planning the seating chart." "And what do you want?" I ask softly. The question seems to startle her. She turns, eyes wide. I think she might answer. Instead, she stands, brushes invisible dirt from her skirt. "What I want stopped mattering a long time ago, James." But I saw the truth in how her hands shook, how she leaned into our conversations, the touches that seemed to happen more often. The successful engineer facade would crack, revealing glimpses of that girl who shared my sandwiches, who faced the world with quiet determination. During our last dinner that week, I watch her pick at her food. The ring on her finger catches the light, heavy, ostentatious, everything Megan isn't. "You deserve to be happy," I say finally. "Not just secure, not just comfortable, actually happy." She looks up, eyes swimming with tears. The mask she wore for Brian, for his family, for the world, it crumbles. In that moment, I see every doubt, every fear, every dream she pushed aside for stability. I don't know how anymore, she whispers, her voice breaking. I built this life, this safe life. Walking away, she shakes her head, presses her lips together. I reach across, cover her hand with mine. She doesn't pull away. You're still that brave girl I knew, Megan. The one who never let circumstances define her. A single tear escapes. She wipes it quickly, but something has shifted. In her eyes, I see a spark of the old determination, the fire that carried her from a struggling kid to the woman before me. As we part that night, standing in the soft fog, neither of us spoke. The weight of everything unsaid, possibilities and fears and hopes, hung in the air. She squeezes my hand once, hard, then walks away. Heels clicking on the pavement, each step echoing with decision. The first sign of trouble came during a meeting. I'm presenting updated contract terms when Brian strides in, 30 minutes late, a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. He sits beside Megan, his hand possessively covering hers on the table. James, he drawls, interrupting me. Tell me about Pennsylvania. That's where you're from, right? Friendly tone, but an edge that makes my skin prickle. I keep my face neutral, years of sales experience kicking in. Born and raised, I reply, clicking to the next slide. Now, regarding the implementation timeline, fascinating coincidence. Brian cuts in, his fingers tightening visibly around Megan's hand. Same small town as my fiancé. What are the odds? His eyes lock on mine. A challenge. The room temperature drops. I see Megan's shoulders tense, see her pull her hand away under the guise of reaching for her water. The other executives shift uncomfortably, sensing the hostility. Over the next few days, obstacles appear. Documents I need go missing. Meetings get rescheduled. Every time I try to move the deal forward, I hit a roadblock. Brian's fingerprints are all over it, but nothing I can prove. The worst is watching Megan navigate the tension. She'll catch my eye, silent apology in her expression. Then Brian materializes. He's always touching her now, a hand on her back, fingers brushing her arm, little gestures of ownership. Just giving the deal its due diligence, Brian says smoothly when questioned about delays. But I see how he watches me, cataloging every interaction between Megan and me. His smile grows sharper, predatory, each day. One afternoon, my access to project files gets revoked. IT shows me the email, apparently. Brian had concerns about information security. I grip my laptop, knowing if I lose this deal, I'm finished. John is already looking for someone to blame for the Stardust mess. This would be the ideal excuse. Later that evening, I overhear Brian and Megan arguing. Her voice is tight, controlled. This is unprofessional. The board expects this deal by month's end. I'm protecting our company's interests, Brian shoots back. And maybe some personal ones too. You think I don't see how you look at him? I should walk away. Instead, I linger, heart pounding. He's an old friend. Megan's voice cracks. And this deal could transform Innotech. Your father. My father doesn't know him like I do. Googled him, Megan. The Stardust deal? Total disaster. You stake our future on someone who can't manage a simple contract? My fists clench. The Stardust mess was John's fault. But of course, Brian twisted that. I hear Megan's sharp intake of breath, see her frustration and resignation. The next morning, Brian calls an emergency board meeting. I'm not invited, but word travels fast. He's raising serious concerns about Global Tech's track record, suggesting other partners. A power play, pure and simple. He's using his position, his father's influence, to force me out. I sit in my hotel room, staring at my phone. One call to John, admitting defeat, and it's over. Brian wins. He'll keep Megan in his world, where money buys compliance, and love is measured in carats. Then I remember the look in Megan's eyes, when we talked about the past. The fierce girl who refused to be defined by her circumstances. Brian might kill this deal, but he underestimates what he's really fighting against. This isn't just business. It's about the kid who shared her sandwich, the woman who kept a beat-up keychain, the unspoken thing between us that Brian can sense but not understand. Let him play his games. Some things are worth fighting for, even if it means risking everything. I pick up my phone and dial Brian's father's direct line. Time to lay all the cards on the table. Brian isn't the only one who can make power moves. I have nothing to lose. The call comes as I'm packing, stuffing wrinkled shirts between folders. My phone buzzes, Megan's name lighting up the screen. My heart lurches. James. Her voice raw, trembling. I need to see you. 20 minutes later, Jefferson Square Park. The fog rolled in, wrapping streetlights in halos. She sits on a bench, hunched forward, designer coat out of place in this working-class neighborhood. She looks up, eyes red, mascara smeared. I broke it off, she whispers. With Brian, it's over. The words hang in the damp air. She fumbles in her coat, pulls out something small, worn. I recognize the faded purple fur, the missing whisker, the crooked tail, the stuffed cat keychain from 5th grade. Remember this? Her voice cracks. I watch her trace the worn edges, remembering the day I'd won it. Megan was crying that morning. Some kids made fun of her clothes. I spent my allowance trying to get that cat, determined to make her smile. You kept it all this time? I ask. She nods, tears spilling freely now. It was the first time anyone had ever. She presses her lips together, collecting herself. You saw me, James. Not the poor kid, not the charity case. Just me. I want to reach for her, but something holds me back. What happened with Brian? He showed his true colors tonight. Her laugh is bitter, hollow. Called me ungrateful. Said I'd never have gotten here without him, without his family's connections. She grips the keychain tighter. And you know what? Maybe he's right. Maybe I did use him, use his name to climb out of that hole. But I can't. I can't keep pretending. Her voice breaks. Without thinking, I pull her close. She buries her face in my shoulder, shaking with sobs. I breathe in her shampoo, feel her fingers clutch at my jacket. I'm so tired, she whispers. Tired of being what everyone else needs me to be. The perfect fiancé. The grateful charity case who made good. I've spent so long trying to belong in their world. I forgot who I am. I stroke her hair. You never needed their world, Meg. You made your own way. That brilliant mind, that determination, that was all you. She pulls back slightly, wiping her eyes. In the streetlight, I see Brian's ring is gone, a pale band of skin left behind. When you came back into my life, she continues, her voice steadier now. It was like waking up. Like remembering who I used to be before I started measuring my worth by designer labels and country club memberships. A police car cruises by. Headlights sweep over us. Megan doesn't flinch, doesn't worry about who might see us. The mask she wore for so long is cracking, revealing the authentic woman. Brian said something else tonight. She says, fingers still clutching the keychain. He said I was that desperate girl from Pennsylvania, trying to prove I belonged. And you know what? He's right. I am that girl. Her chin lifts. The girl who studied by flashlight when we couldn't pay the electric bill, who wore the same clothes for 3 years but still made honor roll, who never, ever gave up. Pride swells in my chest. This is the Megan I remember. Fierce, unstoppable. That girl was extraordinary. I say gently. She turns to me, eyes bright with tears, but also something else. Hope, maybe, or courage. I'm scared, James, she admits. Everything I built here, everything I thought I wanted, I'm walking away from it all. You're not walking away, I say, taking her hands. You're walking towards something. Something real. The ghost of a smile touches her lips. She looks at our hands, then at the little purple cat. When did you become so wise? Oh, I had this friend in 5th grade, I say, squeezing her fingers. Taught me a lot about courage, about being true to yourself, no matter what. She laughs, a true laugh that chases away the fog. For a moment, we're just 2 kids again, sharing secrets and sandwich halves, facing the world together. Stay with me, she whispers, and I know she's not just talking about tonight. I pull her close again, feeling her heart beat against mine. As long as you need me, I promise. Always. The morning after Megan's confession, my phone rings. Richard Chen, Enotech CEO. My stomach clenches as I answer, already rehearsing my resignation. James. Richard's voice is crisp, authoritative. I owe you an apology. I sit hard on the bed, caught off guard. Through the phone, I hear him sigh. My son's behavior has been unacceptable, professionally and personally. Megan came to see me this morning. She told me everything. My throat tightens. Megan facing this powerful man, probably in yesterday's clothes, eyes red, but spine straight. Sir, I don't. He cuts me off. You've conducted yourself with integrity through all this. The deal is yours. I've already called your CEO about how Brian handled things. Your position at Global Tech is secure. Relief floods through me, my hands shaking. But Richard isn't done. And James? Off the record. His voice softens slightly. I've watched Megan become an engineer these past 3 years, but I've never seen her eyes light up like they do when she talks about that little town in Pennsylvania. About you. I close my eyes, remember how she looked last night, clutching that keychain, finally letting her true self shine. Take care of her, Richard says, and hangs up. 3 weeks later, I'm back in Chicago when my phone lights up. A text from Megan. Just landed at O'Hare. Left everything behind. Well, almost everything. Attached. A picture of the cat keychain, sitting on what looks like an airport coffee cup. My heart races as I type back. Same cafe as San Francisco? See you in 20, comes her reply. The cafe is quiet for a Wednesday afternoon. I claim our usual corner table. Funny how quickly we developed usual spots in 2 different cities. Through the window, fat snowflakes drift down. So different from San Francisco's eternal fog. Then I see her, pushing through the door in a simple wool coat. No designer labels. Snowflakes melt in her dark hair, and her cheeks are flushed from the cold. She looks younger, lighter, as if she shed more than just Brian's ring in San Francisco's pretenses. Hey, she says, sliding into the seat, her eyes bright, nervous but determined. Hey yourself, I reply, pushing a steaming mug toward her. Already ordered your usual. She wraps her hands around the cup, breathes in the familiar smell of vanilla latte. I walked away from my job, she says finally. My apartment, everything I spent years building, Regrets? She shakes her head, a small smile playing at her lips. Surprisingly, no. It all feels right. Like I've been holding my breath for years, and I can finally exhale. I watch her fidget with the keychain, now attached to her new house keys, a tangible link between past and present. You know this won't be easy, I say quietly. We're not kids anymore. We both carry baggage. I know. She reaches across, takes my hand. Her fingers are cold, but her grip is sure. But for the first time in years, I'm not trying to be someone else's version of perfect. I'm just me. That scared little girl from Pennsylvania who grew up to be exactly who she wanted to be, not who anyone else thought she should be. Snow falls outside, turning Chicago into a snow globe. In the warmth of the cafe, surrounded by coffee and quiet conversation, everything feels possible. So, Megan says, her thumb tracing circles on my palm. What do you say, James? Think we can make this work? I squeeze her hand, heart full of memories, both old and new. The little girl sharing my sandwich. The woman who kept a worn keychain through 15 years. The fighter who walked away from a life of privilege to find her own path. I know we can, Megan, I say in a low voice. I know we can. She smiles then, real and bright, no trace of the polished facade. Outside, the snow falls harder, but we barely notice. We found our way back through 15 years of change, chances, choices. This time, we're holding on tight. Later, walking through the snowy streets, Megan tucks against my side for warmth, and I realize something. Sometimes the longest journeys lead you right back where you started, not to the same place, but to the same truth. And our truth is simple. Two kids from Pennsylvania who found each other again, ready to face whatever comes next, together.